Good morning, good afternoon, good night, and welcome back to another episode of the Heart to Heart podcast. Been a hot minute since I've been here. So what happens when you decide to crack your head open one of these fun things. I am joined by one of the top guests I've wanted to interview. Comedy's always been my idea, my goal, the type of people I want to speak to. And I get to join today by someone who's been on Comedy Central, Fox, Hulu, and really does join stage with some of the biggest names in the game. Today I'm joined by Brian Monarch. How are you, Brian?
I'm pretty good. What about you, man? I heard you had a accident.
Yeah, some head fracture, some back pain. About a 750-pound electric motor came through the truck and hit me in the head. So it was a little bit of a ICU hospital visit for sure.
Wow. How long were you there for?
I was in the hospital for a week. And then it took me about another 2 or 3 weeks to get back to work. So I haven't recorded a single podcast since. I missed my first couple weeks in the past 2 years of releasing a podcast when it happened. So it feels good to get back into it. It feels good to not be forgetting as much. There's a lot of head issues at the beginning, just
Oh my God.
forgetting some weird stuff. And so I'm starting to slowly work my way back into it, but this is what I wanted to do and I'm back to doing it. So I appreciate you joining me today.
Yeah, you seem like you're in good health and mentally there, and everything is good. I feel like that's good.
It might be the first time I've gotten to this place. I feel like this accident might have turned me around. Maybe it straightened me out because
You were like right here, got in the accident, you were down here, and now you're up
yeah,
here.
yeah. Just bounce back has been incredible. But I appreciate you looking into it. It's definitely been a wicked month, but this is the stuff I like to do, and the comedians I've interviewed have changed my entire podcast and what I'm looking to do. So you're the sixth comedian in a row I've interviewed, and really kind of the goal I want to do. And you're by far the biggest comedian I've interviewed so far. Um,
Oh, they must
you're
have been some open micers you had on there before.
I didn't interview myself. Uh, no, I gotta say I've been following your account for I gotta say probably almost a year now, and watching your deep fakes and seeing your stand up acts and who you're joining on the stage and watching your clips at the different comedy stores or shows that you're at. I'm
Yeah.
obviously out of Canada, so our approach to comedy is not in the same realm of the U.S. It's harder to find the comedy stores, and there's not as many yucks anymore. But I wanted to dive into your career so far and your goals and things you have moving forward. Could you just give us a little bit of a background of where you're from and where you started comedy?
Well, I was sort of fortunate because I was born in the LA area. So I've
Nice,
always lived in Los Angeles, the one of the two big meccas of comedy.
definitely.
And you know, I was born in the early 70s, and I just really loved Eddie Murphy when I was growing up in the 80s, and Delirious and Raw. And then I was really into Andrew Dice Clay for a while in the 90s. And I just really wanted to try it. And it was I don't know, I just wasn't that sort of person. It was hard to get yourself to get in front of a stage and just be stared at and
Yeah,
have the insecurities of having to make them laugh. So I took a long time gearing up to try it the first time. And I remember I would go to open mics just to watch, and I
yeah.
bought the comedy Bible or whatever, the basics of stand-up comedy, all that stuff. And I remember the book said, do not try stand-up comedy at a comedy club the first time you do it. Do it at a coffee shop or some little. And I was like going to all these open mics, and I was watching these coffee shop performers, and nobody's paying attention, nobody's laughing. It's all a few other stand-ups watching, and I was just like, why would I want to do this when there's zero chance of me getting a laugh?
Yeah,
So
it's
I
intimidating.
finally just I ignored the book and I went to the Laugh Factory and did 3 minutes. I was very nervous. I went to Disneyland the day before on purpose, just so I'd be able to sleep that night. Like I figured if I was walking around the sun all day, I'd be able to at least sleep.
Wow, you had it down to a plan.
I had a plan, man, and I totally bombed. But I have this competitive nature in me. Like I just want to, if the bombing actually helps with someone like me. So I wanted to do it again and again and again. And, that was back in like 98. So think I finally got good, like, in the last few weeks. And just kidding. Um, Years and years I stopped for a while, because back then it was hard to find shows. There was no social media. It was just
Yeah.
like, just look in the LA Weekly and see if there's an open mic. And open mics kind of suck. And I don't know, it's just hard at the beginning. It's hard for anyone at the beginning. So I started running my own shows.
Good for you.
Yeah, and my buddy owned a pizza place back then, and I was like, "Hey, dude, let's do this every Tuesday. We'll do this thing. We'll call it the LA Comedy Experience." And I started running the show, and it's crazy because the people that did the show that were open micer types back then, a couple of them are huge now. Like Nikki Glaser used to do my show, and
Wow.
Andrew Santino did my show. Ari Shafir, Joey Diaz.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was
These are
crazy.
some of my favorite, like Andrew Santino is someone like bad friends, him and Bobby or something I've been following since I started podcasting. Like, and like Nikki Glazer, Joey Diaz is hilarious. That's another New York comic. That's that's wild.
Yeah, so that's how I got started. I would, whenever I ran a show, I'd perform on it as well, and that's pretty much what I'm doing now. It's just blown up to a point now
Holy
where,
shit.
I'm at the one of the biggest venues with the biggest names, and yeah, it's awesome.
So are you full time at the Hollywood Improv now then?
That's my job. Yeah, I run shows there every week, twice a week, and yeah, that's what I do.
Wow, man, this is mind blowing. So I've always seen your posts with who you're having on. Like it's just it honestly it's what like the way you're speaking is gives me so much more like I don't even know why I'm not getting my words right now, but like push to want to do more and like grow what I'm doing now and seeing how it's worth it and the people that grow with you and like I remember like going through like the people that you've had on that, and you've had like Arsenio Hall and like David Spade, and like you get these guys that you grew up watching or you see succeed. Now they're doing your show, and you're surrounded by this talent now, and it's like super motivational to see where you started in this pizza parlor, like pushing to get these guys to come out and do comedy and seeing where everyone's at now. Now you're able to host some of the biggest names in the world when it comes to comedy. That's so impressive, man. Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, it took a long time. I mean, after the pizza place went out of business, we did that for like 3 years. Then I started running a show at this Burbank karaoke bar called Sardo's. That's gone now as well. I did that for I think 2 years, and I was doing the John Lovitz Comedy Club. That's gone now. I've done the Comedy Store, Laugh Factory, Improv. But yeah, right now
Wow.
my home club is the Improv, and it's awesome. And I do think that they have like the nicest staff and the best employees, and I think things are really booming over there right now. So it's really good.
From all the large names, the most you hear about is the Hollywood Improv and the Comedy Store in LA. And
Yeah,
the Comedy Store, I didn't really hear about it too much until Rogan, like
yeah, they
until I
were.
started listening to that.
Yeah,
But
I used to run shows there, and I really, when I first started, it was hard to get people in those doors. And I stopped running shows there when the pandemic started, and they were just booming so hard at that point. Um, and a couple of the managers told me I was one of the people that really helped with that. But I think
that's awesome.
Rogan was one of the biggest factors, them bringing him back in there, because he was banned for a long time, because of the Carlos Mencia incident. But yeah, it's those are probably the two biggest ones right now: the Comedy Store and the Improv.
It's so intimidating and crazy to think like I'm a kid in a small town in Ontario, Canada that has 7,000 people in it. Thinking about the Hollywood Improv and all, like obviously I go to like Toronto and Montreal and stuff like that. Like I've seen some of the bigger events, but to think about how hard is it now to get into the improv to see shows? How hard is it to get into the Comedy Store to see shows? Because when you think about it from where I'm sitting, it's like most of the comedians that I follow, Segura, Kreischer, Santino, like Bobby Lee, like these guys, they talk all the time on their podcasts and on their social medias about doing regular shows at these places to work on their acts because they're on the road and they're doing these things. I just can't imagine what it would be like to like see the lineup that you're putting out for one of your shows and being able to get in and see those guys in the same night is just. Is it
Yeah, it's
hard to get
pretty
into those
cool.
places now?
You mean like, are they sold out all the time?
Yeah.
Most of my shows, I mean, I think I've been doing it for, what is it, like a year and 4 months now, I think, or so, since they reopened after the pandemic. And I think just about every one of my shows has been sold out. But to be honest, things are different in LA. Like there's comedy on every corner. There's lots of big names here. So people are kind of, what's the word? Jaded a little. So it's
Yeah.
like they can see these people anytime. But so the way I'm basically saying you could get in. Yeah. If you wanted a ticket, sometimes it'll sell out a day or two in advance if it's a huge lineup, but usually the day of, if you try to get tickets before like 2, 3 p.m., it's usually you usually can get some. But
I'm flying down to LA for the first time next September, and I'm there for a week. Me and my wife are coming down for a week. She's got stuff she wants to do. I want to see the comedy scene firsthand and see how it goes. Never been to LA. I'm gonna be the most unorthodox, out of place person there. Well, I guess there's probably a lot of outrageous people in LA going for the dream, but I gotta see the store. I gotta see the improv. Like I want to see these places so bad, but I just didn't know how up and down it is to try and get a spot in there when you get to see some of your favorite comedians all in one night.
yeah, I mean, just plan ahead. I mean, just to be safe, get your tickets a few days in advance,
Oh,
maybe
definitely.
even a week,
Yeah.
and
Could
a
be.
lot of times the names aren't on the Comedy Store's website until like that Tuesday. So, it's kind of a luck of the draw thing if you buy tickets too far in advance because you don't know who's going to be on the show, who's in town. Um, but yeah, I mean, if you hit me up, dude, I'll put you on the guest list. You've been a really nice guy, and I'll put you on, get in there for one of my shows if I'm still at the Improv. I assume I will be.
That's wild. I want to like that's so nice of you, but I want to talk about your career, what you've got going forward for you. Like what is your goals? Like what is your like if you could have one jump into something right now, what would it be? Is everyone pushing in comedy for a Netflix special? I see that a lot of guys are pushing to like release them on YouTube and that's growing tremendously. It seems like the views that are getting seen on YouTube now, like with people I'm trying to think of the main guy, New York comic that released on YouTube this year, got like 10 million views on it.
Sam
Uh
Morril.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah,
then
he's
like
great.
Ari Shafir just released on YouTube and he's like his is taken off. Like these people, like it seems like comedy has finally gotten to a point where the comedian finally has majority of the say of where their content is and how they succeed.
Yeah. My buddy Matt Rife, I don't know if you've heard of him yet. He just did his YouTube special months ago and it blew him up so fast. He sold out the Wilbur Theater in
Sure. Oh,
Boston
Boston.
3 nights. 3 different nights. Like, and this is a guy that was like me and him were opening for Dane Cook on his last tour. As a matter of fact,
That's
he was
crazy.
hosting those shows.
That's
So it's crazy
crazy.
how, yeah, it's crazy, man. He just totally blew up, man. And I put him on my shows now. He was on my show last night, but he ended up having strep throat. But yeah, he's selling tickets like one of the big boys now. It's crazy how fast it can go. But when it comes to
Wilbur.
me, my goal is to, I've been accruing all this material for, all this time, and I think a lot of it is really good. Um, One thing about me is I'm a little bit on the dirtier side, and it's a little hard for, especially nowadays with the PC culture, to like get agencies or, people to want to put a special like that up. It's okay for people that have an established persona like that. You know what I mean? Like Anthony Jeselnik or Bill Burr. No one's going to tell him to, clean it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah.
but for someone who's not been discovered to the high levels of, on media and such, it's not so easy right now to like just say, yeah, put me up here and listen to all my dirty jokes and so but I am working on it and that would be the next logical step for me, getting a special up somewhere. But I don't want to do it half-ass and I don't want to just
I
I see
respect
all
that.
these guys putting it on Amazon, which is just it's basically putting it into a pit of an abyss that nobody ever sees. Like it's not like Netflix where they feature you like on this thing, and it's just there if people search for you. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
anybody can do it, just like anybody can sell a book on Amazon. You know what I mean? It's just, here's my content. I'm going to upload it, put it on there. It gets approved, and
It
you're,
doesn't feel earned.
yeah. And it also doesn't feel like, even Jeff Garlin, he's a big name. He put his on Amazon. They convinced him to put it on. He was so pissed off. He was telling me, he's like, nobody saw it. He's like, nobody saw my special. And he's Jeff Garlin. Like, it's
And you
crazy.
put that much time and work
Yeah.
on your special hour for months and months, year, could be multiple years really, and
Yeah.
go through that much time and then it not
Oh,
do
it
what you
takes a
need it to.
long time the first time. Like Ali Wong, I think she worked 12 years on her first stand-up special. Like, it's crazy. Like, it's not something that happens. An hour's worth of content does not happen quickly. If
No,
it's
no,
good.
definitely not.
Yeah.
I,
If it's good.
I've literally done an open mic, and it was something that I craved doing for so long, but it took me a little while to gain the balls to do it.
Yeah.
And then I finally did it and loved it. And then it's just been like trying to do it again. I want to do it again. But like where I am, and there's not as many of the open mic or amateur nights as there might be around you.
Yeah.
But regardless, it's just I'm thinking about your comedy. You say you're dirty, and you got that type of comedy. It's almost like there's not enough of them right now, and there's such a large group of people that need that, like that crave that, like someone breaking it out of the box. There's so many comedians now that got so big, and I get it, but like they're very focused on getting on like a Tonight Show or being a part of acting or certain things in their career that they don't want to push the lines too far anymore, and they want to like ride the fence. And it I I love like I'm a big fan of Tom Segura. He likes to like he doesn't like necessarily push the line as much in his comedy. I saw him in October, but with his podcast and stuff, the shit that they say on Your Mom's House and the stuff they do with their live shows is takes you back to like old style comedy when people just said how they felt and said outrageous shit, and that's what made it funny,
Yeah.
you know?
And like, if it gets to the point where I just really just need to get it out, I'll do the YouTube thing, and maybe that is the best route right now. It seems like a lot of people are succeeding there. So I got to really think about it over this new year, I think, and figure out which direction I want to go.
It's it and I'm not even speaking for someone who's done comedy longer than Coffee Break. I just I can't imagine how like you've put so much of your life and your time into developing how successful you are as a comedian, and the spot that you're sitting in with all these other comedians and being able to bring them onto your show and host in one of the most prestigious places in North America to do stand-up comedy. You don't want to feel like you've half-assed or not done your stand-up special exactly how you want to. It'd be
Yeah.
so intimidating for me, and I don't, and I've got 7 minutes, like, and 7 minutes of junk, like, but I can't imagine like trying to put together your best hour over however many years you've been doing stand-up, trying to put it together for your special. It's got to be a lot.
Yeah. It's kind of nerve-wracking to think about. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I have any jokes that are from my first 7 minutes still. I mean, if I did an hour, I probably would throw in one thing, but it's changed so much since I initially did it. You know what I
It like
mean?
evolves.
Yeah, totally.
How long, like, did you say, I can't remember if you had said a specific year, or like how long you've been doing stand-up in general?
The first time I tried it was in '98. That was where I did that Laugh Factory open mic. And I only remember it because I only know the date because I went back and looked because I referenced the movie Godzilla with Matthew Broderick. And I actually was like, when did I start comedy? And I actually looked and I was like, oh, okay, that movie came out in '98. So that must be when I started.
That's
Um,
wild.
but like I said, I did open mics for a while. I started doing bringer shows. You ever do, what those are?
That's where you like bring the crowd.
Yeah, basically, like, the promoters, like, you got to get people out, this is how that works, nobody's paying to see you, you're not a big name. And I used to run shows like that, so I totally understand how it works. It's just the LA stand-up scene is just so saturated with comedy that why would they pay $10 to see these
Generic name.
beginners, rather than Iliza Schlesinger down the street for $20. You know what I mean? It's just how it is. Or, and
It's all
everyone is.
it's
So
also mind-blowing how involved you can be in stand-up comedy and still not know certain comedians that are big. Like like Eliza, that's how you pronounce her first name, correct?
Iliza Schlesinger, yeah.
Yeah, she's huge, is she not?
Yeah, she's had more Netflix specials than anyone, as far as I'm aware. 6 he's up to.
And that's like, so like top guys like Tom, Theo, Bert, like Andrew, Bobby Lee, like those guys, like Chris Stefano. Those guys are like the guys that I watch all the time.
Yeah.
Their podcasts, their stand up, their specials. Go see them live. You can't see it. I'll show you after. But Tom Segura's signed poster is right above my logo here from his show I saw in October. Like I know all them and I follow all their comedy and all the stuff they do all the time, and yet
Hmm.
I've never seen one of Iliza's acts in my life.
Yeah.
Like it's something that, and that's just LA. Like majority of these comedians that I'm naming, other than Chris, and I guess Theo's a little farther now, but all of them are in LA. Or well,
Yeah,
they
most of
were. I
them.
guess
I
some of them
mean,
moved to
New York
Austin, but
obviously has a lot as well.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I've heard
Yeah.
LA and New York would have been the top in the United States for sure, and I know Austin's starting to grow with a bunch of them moving at the same time as Rogan, but it's still it's crazy. Like these names, like like how you explain it. Someone's not going to spend $10 to see a guy who has maybe been doing it for years, but isn't a known name when they can see some of the top names in the world, right?
Oh, totally. And comedians have egos, you know. So even the beginning comedians, at least the ones down here, not all of them, but like a lot of them, you know, I can't believe that they're trying to make me promote the show, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, there's a lot of anger when it comes to those sorts of shows. And it's like, well, how do you think we're going to get people to come see you? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it's just not,
100%.
yeah. So, I
And
mean,
that's not even,
I don't like the way it has to be done, but that is the way it had to be done when I started producing shows. Like I didn't have all the big names yet. And then I met a couple of them and I'd be like, hey, will you close out my show with all these beginners? And like I had a show called Up and Comers and it would have
nice.
a headliner at the end. And eventually I started to realize like take 2 headliners and put them in there. Oh, I don't need as many bringers. And then I put 3 headliners and I was like, I don't need any bringers, you know, and I just sort of morphed into like more of a premier comedy promoter instead of like this, you know, thing I was doing where I was just trying to get people to, you know, bring the crowd because
Yeah.
it's just they don't like it. I didn't like it. It's just a necessary evil, unfortunately, when there's all this comedy down here. But I'm glad I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it's it's a weird aspect to hear so much from like all these comedians about how it works. Like even with Jesse, I want to say Jet Ski. I don't Jesse. Anyway, she's on the Bad Friends every so often now. She's a door person at the store right now,
Mm-hmm.
and like hearing like someone that works the door, someone that works inside the comedy store slowly starts getting some spots and working their way up and working up into the lineup. Like I've just noticed that there's so many comedians in obviously these big cities more than anything else, but you think about how many comedians that are there has to be out there that are just as funny as some of the biggest names in the business that you don't ever find out about because there's so many of them trying to grow and get bigger and take up spots. Like there could be comedians that are working with other comedians on stage doing the thing just as funny but never get to grow as much either from agencies or people picking them up or when especially when comedians didn't have as big of a shot to produce and put out their own stuff like years ago that might have been doing an act in front of someone who just didn't like that style of comedy. It wasn't that you weren't funny. You made the entire crowd laugh. You killed, and yet it didn't really work for them, and they didn't see how you would ever go further. It just seemed like you could have people that are equal skill level but didn't make it as far up until now. Like now that you can start releasing your own things. Like, do you ever like where I was going with this? Jesus, I'm starting to run away with my shit. Um, just wondering, like you build your own lineups. You see these incredible names that are on stage with you all night. Did that ever intimidate you?
Yeah. Ari Shafir used to be a door guy, by the way.
So
Yeah, it's
hilarious.
crazy. I think he used to work the phones at the store. Like there's so many weird stories like with those guys. But yeah, it could be intimidating, but I think I'm used to it after all these years. I mean, I've had these big shows for probably 7 or 8 years now, and before that I had medium shows, and before that I had the beginning shows.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I mean, there was one time I was at the store and Chris D'Elia went up before me. He had to go earlier than he expected, and I had to follow him. And he's so high energy, and I was just like, oh my god! But Yeah, I mean, now I go after, the biggest names. Like I just take the last spot that's available. Like if somebody wants to go first, then I'll go second. If they want to go in the middle, I'll go early. I don't care. I prefer not to close the show, because people came to see those guys and I try to avoid the closing spot. But yeah, I mean, it's intimidating, and I have to go. Sometimes I'll go after like Iliza and Bobby Lee. I think just the other night I went after both of them, and I was like, "Give it up for my openers, Iliza and Bobby Lee." Like, just make a kind of funny joke, get them laughing at that, and then just start with the act.
Dude, I don't know, man. It's gotta be like growing for you too, though. Like doing this, you say, like specifically with the Hollywood Improv for a little over, like, what is it, a year now, a year and a half now?
Well, I've worked there for many, many years, but since the pandemic and they reopened, it's been a year and a half. And I was just saying all my shows have been sold out since they reopened.
Mm,
But
okay.
yeah, I've been at the Improv probably 8 years and to 10 years even.
Like
Like
hosting this specific type of show?
I mean, okay, so there's different wording that I would use. Like host is the guy who brings up the comedians. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah,
I'm
yeah, 100%. Sorry, I'm not used
producing
to that.
or yeah, producing or booking.
Yeah.
Um,
Or running them,
but
I guess. That's what you
running
do.
them, yeah, whatever you want. Yeah, and it's that I've been doing that for, like I was saying, like the big shows for like probably 7 or 8 years now, and then
Damn.
before that they were a little lower than this, but yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty used to working with these guys, and it's just a 2 times a week thing in my life now, and pretty, I don't want to say numb to it, but like it's not as intimidating as it would be for somebody who's like, oh, you're gonna go on stage tonight with these guys. It's your first show. Like,
Yeah.
so
Like I'm just wondering, like doing like 8 years, like I know it's probably hard to just flash back to when you first started doing this, but how much did it help you grow to be hitting a stage? Actually, 8 years ago, like some of the names that I'm saying right now that I really enjoy were nowhere near the career that they are now 8 years ago. Like,
yeah, and 15 years ago when I started that pizza place, I had some of the biggest names on there. Like it's just like that's how long ago that was. Um, but
damn,
yeah,
you live a
it's just
wild life. Like just like LA and surrounded by these guys. Like I know it's such a different mindset, you being there and sitting there and have been doing it for so long that this is your repetition, this is what you do, you're working on your own spots, you're making sure the spots are filled, you're getting like a gnarly group in there to sell out the Improv all the time, which is obviously super successful. It's something so different to take on my side where I'm like, you're in the room twice a week with people that a lot of people like me would do anything just to be able to like to not only see them live but be within reach of these people is just like, it's incredible, man. Like what you've done has obviously paid off, and the hard work that you've put into this career is obviously showing. And most of the times all you hear from comedians is, I was doing it for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, 20 years before I even got a small break, or finally got a bigger spot, or went on the road with someone bigger, or finally pushed towards a special. Like some of the biggest names out there did it for 15, 20 years before anyone even knew what their name was.
yeah, and everything you're saying is true. I feel extremely lucky to be doing what I'm doing. It's awesome. But there's also another side to things, like the business side of comedy. Um, when it comes to that, there's no security, you know what I mean? Like I feel like I'm the best producer, but like you never know. Like it's not like, I guess you don't know with any job, but that's
Yeah.
that's probably the case. But the bottom line is like I'm getting a chunk of the door, like that's how I make my money. And the Improv could say any day, like, well, we don't want to give you the chunk of the door anymore. You've helped us get us to this level where we don't need you anymore. I don't think that's gonna. I don't know. That's what I mean. Those are the things that go through my head. Like, who knows what's next? It's kind of like I was at the store and I worked there for 15 years. They weren't always the best shows at the beginning, but the last 8 years, like I said, they were all sold out. I was doing 5 shows a month there, in the biggest room there, selling it out. I was like their golden boy producer. And this girl who used to have a lower job, and I've worked with her at 3 comedy clubs. I'm not going to tell you her name. I'm sure you can find out. She became the booker, and she was the decision maker on which promoters got to be in there. I've worked with her at the Improv. I worked with her at the John Lovitz Club, and I worked with her at the store when she had her lower position. And once she got power, she decided I was not going to run shows there anymore. never did anything inappropriate, never did any substances. I don't do
That's shitty.
drugs. And I don't know if she thinks my shows make hers look bad. I don't know if she thinks if there's jealousy. I don't know if she thinks I made too
That's
much
tough.
money while I was there. I have no idea. But that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, though. You never know what's next. Like one person gets shifted into a position and they have some sort of agenda that you're not a part of, and you will never find a producer that could say they sold out more shows than me in the last 8 years at the Comedy Store. And when I now I'm going into this rant, but when I was
That's all
at the
right. I do it all
Comedy
the time.
Store, I was at the Comedy Store Christmas party 4 years ago before the pandemic, and she comes up to me with her boyfriend. She was still at the lower position, and she goes, "This is Brian Monarch. He is so great." She was drunk, like
Yeah, yeah,
we've never loved each other, but we've never gotten in a fight.
yeah.
The worst thing I could remember ever happening is she'd be like, "Can you put these agents on the guest list?" And I would always be like, "I'd rather not, because I don't want to pay for their tickets. But if it's really important to you, I will." I give her kind of pushback like that once in a while, and I feel like her ego just couldn't handle that, and that's just one of my assumptions. Anyway, she comes up to me with her boyfriend. He was one of the biggest parts. He was one of the biggest reasons why the Comedy Store didn't go out of business 8 years ago. He really helped us get out of a real big slump. Um, and that same person, after the pandemic, won't even let me have one monthly show, much less my weekly show that I had there. So,
Man,
yeah,
that's trash.
yeah, she's trash. But I don't know what else to say, man. Like
Bag of garbage.
I was always nice to her. I was always professional. I always tried to reason with her, and she just. So that's what I mean by job security in this business. Like you never
Yeah,
know.
fuck.
But things feel really good at the Improv right now. They really appreciate me. They were hurting it after the pandemic. They told me straight up, like we're in trouble. I did a benefit show over there for them where I didn't take any money, and the comedians didn't take any money, and they got all the profits that night. Sold out. Got David Spade. Got Iliza.
Damn.
Um, yeah. So and things have been really turning around over there since then. And I'd like to think that we have a really good relationship, and I think we do, and I think things will be good.
Man, going like right back to the beginning of this, starting off by saying you're very lucky. Like, I don't think that there's luck involved here. I've seen like your deep fakes, the stuff you do. Like, first off, going and doing all these shows every single month, as well as producing all the stuff you do for your content and to keep people involved in your profile. And the shit fucking makes me laugh. Like, I watch it all the time. I was showing a buddy today, Arnold Schwarzenegger in The Bachelor. No, Bridesmaids on a plane.
Yeah.
And like that's the kind of stuff like and talking about like the comedy world and how like it's cutthroat. And I only know it from a bystander. Like I only know it because I listen to so many comedians, but it is like one person you're in, then the next person you're out. And it's like you trust people as much as you can. Hopefully you build a good friendship with certain comedians and rely on one another to back each other. But at the same time, like I've heard some of the worst shit about like certain comedy stores, like not actually like I know the Comedy Store is an actual name of a comedy club
Comedy clubs.
in
Yeah.
the comedy clubs, certain comedy clubs where it's just like the people that run it or manage it or own it are just savage. And like one weekend they're your best friend, you're making the money, the next weekend they got nothing to do with you. So you're obviously in a crazy industry, and I'm sure it's stressful enough not knowing if it's set in stone or written in a contract of how long it'll last. But with
Yeah.
what you're doing for this place and how successful your shows are and how successful the stuff you're doing right now on social media, because stuff's getting sent to me is the stuff that you make. Like stuff, the stuff like your reels and the stuff that you make with these deep fakes gets sent to my inbox from my friends, and it's like it's awesome to see the stuff like that. Like I was receiving them as I was enjoying them, and I was like, I got to reach out to this guy. Who knows if he's down to chat with a kid from Canada? But it's awesome, man. I
I
got to
get hit
want
up. I get sorry to interrupt you, but I get hit up for podcasts all the time. But you were just super nice, and I was like, yeah, why not? Like I always enjoy people that are just like not. I don't know. It just seemed like you were more of a genuine kind of guy when you reached out, so I appreciate it.
and that's not on my own side here, but people have asked me before how I get certain people to interview them. Just with like when I first started, I interviewed like people off Netflix shows like The Circle and stuff like that, because my main goal at the beginning was to interview people that had big followings. That helps me get bigger following. But I'm starting to realize that the way I'm going to grow is if people like the podcast. And if I'm just talking to someone just for the fact that they have a bunch of followers and maybe it'll grow me and it help me worth the shit. So the second I become interested in someone on social media like you with your comedy and watching your stand up and watching your deep fakes and seeing how much you bust your ass to go after it, that's the shit that pushes me. And that's the type of people that I want to talk to. So when I message you and it comes across genuine, it ain't just me. Like I've messaged hundreds of people trying to get them to come on a podcast, and I'm always the same. Like, if you're interested, please let me know. Like, I am a no one to all of these people. I'm a no one to most of these people. Like, I'm only bigger than most people's personal fucking social media accounts. Like, I'm trying to grow. I've been busting my ass for 2 years, and we'll keep on touring through. But to speak to someone like you, someone that's in the environment of what most people dream of, taking the leap of faith to trying to do, is to go to LA for the dream, is incredible. Like hearing what you're going through and growing up there and busting your ass, it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I've considered starting a podcast myself. I just don't know what niche to like pick, you know. I actually read something, this might help you, I don't know. It was just an email, this newsletter I'm on, but it said to be successful at a podcast, there's 4 things to focus on, and 2 of them have to be unique, whereas most people that start a podcast only use one of those 4 things, that they make one of those 4 things unique. You need to have 2 of the 4 unique to be in your own niche, I guess. So I'll have to forward it to you when I find it, but it was something I read just like in the last 2 days, and it kind of hit me like, yeah, that makes
That's
sense, you know.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to see it. One of the like I've been trying to think of all the time like different segments to have, and like I'm not a producer. Okay. I started off this podcast, I started buying equipment slowly, more and more and more. And like I have a nicer camera, which stopped connecting to my computer. So with having to do Zoom stuff right now, I just have been dealing with this webcam, but buying nicer mics and nicer equipment and nicer stands. But I've wanted to start doing more like segments, and I haven't fully figured out how to edit them into my software. But one of the
Yeah.
segments I'd come up with was I bring up a picture of a vehicle between me and the comedian, and we both describe what type of person would drive that vehicle, like a rusted, clapped out Dodge
Right.
or a minivan with some angry, upset soccer mom and stuff like that, like coming up with segments. But I think that you would have a great podcast talking about like even the stuff that you do. Like
Yeah.
and I feel like your interview list of talking to people would be fairly long.
Yeah, and I actually, funny thing is, I have obviously I've taken notes on what I want my podcast to be if I do it, and I had like a titles section of what I'd call it, and one of them was called segments, just like call the podcast segments, because I was
Yeah.
thinking it would be cool to have like every week we have this part, this part, this part, and one of the segments was going to be, if it was a comedian, play the earliest material you have access to, whether it's even on whether it's an audio tape, like the
Yeah.
shittiest open mic you've ever done, and we're going to listen to it. And the funny part is, the reason I came up with this idea is because I've had mine sitting on my computer since 1998. Like
Oh, that's craziness.
I had a micro cassette recorder. I won't listen to it. It's like I probably should now because I don't care, but like it's cringe, dude. Like I had a micro cassette recorder. I remember I went out of the output into the sound card, created an MP3 out of it,
Wow.
saved it on my computer. My first 3 I have, and it's just so bad, and it's so hard to listen to, and I still have not listened to
That's
it.
so funny.
But it started making me think, if I can convince these comedians to do theirs, you know, it could be pretty funny.
Dude, that is hilarious. First off,
Yeah,
it instantly sucks me into the podcast because I want to see their first shit. Like
yeah,
I want to hear their first, and I want to hear their opinion. Like I listened to Your Mom's House with Segura and Christina P like today on my drive, and they had specifically brought up the fact that they have a hard time and get cringy listening to some of their first specials compared to where they've grown as a comedian. Like
yeah,
even like you were on Netflix for that thing. You were clearly at a level of success to be on Netflix, and you're cringing over this, like talking. Oh man, that's jokes. I would love to see people's first open
yeah,
mics. I know I recorded mine. I've only ever done one, so it's really all the material I got, but I've got it.
yeah.
Oh man, that's incredible. Where how did all this like how did the deep fakes start with you? Like where
I
did
was
this come
on
from?
I was on Instagram and I saw this moving Photoshop thing. Like that's the way my head thought of it. I'm like, are they doing this frame by frame with Photoshop? Like, what is this? And then I hit up one of the guys that was pretty popular, and he's working at South Park's new digital studio,
Oh, nice.
where they do deep fakes. Um, and he's like, "I'll tell you how to do it because I've been to one of your shows, and I people hit me up about this all the time, and I really hate talking about it, but this is the software." And we became kind of buddies, and he walked me through I've been doing it for 3 years, and I'm still learning stuff. Like it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
it's very deep fake. I mean, it's like a lot.
They're
But I'm at the
fucking
point now where
incredible.
thanks. I mean, I'm at the point
Like
now where I'm pretty good at it, and
seeing Theo and Rogan is so. I was playing Theo and like your most recent one. I don't even know if I knew what the movie was, but it was Theo and Rogan, and my buddy's watching it, and he's like, "I'm like, that's Joe Rogan." He's like, "Who?" I'm like, "That guy right there." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "That's Joe Rogan." Like, and then he starts speaking. You have their voices too, doing the
that's
lines of
new.
the
That's
movie.
new.
That
Yeah.
is so like it was here. It was hilarious to hear the movie lines with the other person's voice with their face and their lips moving. But now you're like way up here having them read exactly what the one in the plane with Arnold Schwarzenegger as Melissa McCarthy is fucking incredible. Like that
So
one
that
killed
one's not
me.
that's not AI. That is actually a buddy of mine, Joe Gaudette. He'd be good for your podcast, but he does the Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonation. It's not computer.
Really?
Yeah, he
Oh,
voices
that's
them for me.
phenomenal.
And honestly, his voicing of Arnold is better than the AI is. So because he gets the inflections, perfectly. The Rogan and the Theo voices, those are AI, and I created one of them. The other one was already out there, and they're a little garbly. So I'm sitting here with my mic, this thing, and I'm like doing the lines for them.
Yeah.
Like I have to say the line, and it goes through the AI process, and yeah, it's a pain in the ass adding the voices, but
It's a
it's worth it.
process.
Like
Yeah,
the
but
funny part is I sent Theo Vaughn, we're buddies. We've been doing comedy forever, and he's done my shows since for 12, I think 10 years. And I sent him the latest couple with the voices, and he doesn't like them. He doesn't like the voice ones. I was like, what? Like those are so funny, dude.
it
But
is hilarious with the voices.
yeah,
Like the Arnold
he likes the
Schwarzenegger.
ones where he's singing or dancing, like cute little ones that are just I don't know. Like it seems like
I listened to the Burt cast. You were brought up on it recently.
oh yeah, with Neil Brennan.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. They were talking about like you like even Burt tweeted it. It was like it was him and Theo and Rogan and Segura and Christina and people couldn't even tell it like it was the Wizard of Oz.
oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, he tweeted it saying this is great. And it was your tweet that he shared and with all those guys listed on it.
That
Like
was
if you
recently.
I don't know if it was recent.
Oh,
I looked up Burt Kreischer talks about Brian Monarch and because I was trying to find that YouTube clip of him at Burtcast talking about the clip that you had made because I couldn't remember what the clip was because I was listening to it on Spotify. I couldn't see it. I wasn't
right.
watching it on YouTube. And his Twitter popped up of him sharing the Wizard of Oz one.
That was probably a couple years ago.
Oh,
The one that Neil Brennan brought up was Eddie Murphy turning into Richard Pryor.
that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
that
that's a
I
recent
have
one.
that one pinned at the top of my Instagram profile
Yeah.
if you want to check it out.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen it. I've seen them
Okay.
all.
Okay.
I flew through your well, not all of them. There's a ton of them, but I flew through your profile for weeks and sitting at home stuck on this damn couch, not being able
Yeah.
to go to work and stuff. I've been flying through your stuff. It's
Yeah.
incredible, man. It's a
If you go deep enough, the first two deep fakes I ever made were of me.
oh really?
Yeah, I made myself into Kramer and I made myself into Uncle Rico from when he's talking about throwing a football as far as, like in Napoleon Dynamite. We're actually turning Schwarzenegger into that one right now.
It's
Um,
hilarious.
and also we're turning him into that.
Yeah, yeah, Napoleon. That's
Yeah.
jokes. Man,
Yeah.
that's incredible. I gotta say, it's been a joy speaking to you and talking about your career and everything you've got going for you right now. You seem like a real like a worker. Like you're constantly pushing to grow something, even though you've been working on it for so long. The deep fakes are just getting better and better and better and better. You didn't even find something that you were good at and we're getting traction, just stuck with it the exact same way. It's come so far, even from the how far down I got on them. Like you were saying,
Mhm.
they used to be the regular audio of the actors. So thank you for joining a small town Canadian for a podcast. I really, really appreciate getting to know you and hearing about your successful career.
Yeah, man, keep doing the open mics to see if you like it.
I will. I love it. Even after one.
Yeah, let me know when you're in LA. I'll tell you which shows I got and get you in there.
I really appreciate it, man. It's been a joy getting to know you, and I wish you all the best.
You too, man. Thanks, bro.
See ya.